Hold on to your butts, people, and your 401k, because recession pop is back, and it could not be more timely. Why do you think I'm wearing this banana shirt? Because in the words of Gwen Stefani, shit is bananas. Bananas. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Full Spin Club. My name is David Stewart, and I'm the host of this online album listening club, and this is Full Spin Sunday. This is where we talk about an album I listened to this week, and this week I listened to Lady Gaga's MAYHEM. So let's jump right in. If you've never seen the show before, this is the exact same format as my long-form podcast, and that is on this channel, so please check that out. There are three main segments to the show. There is On a Pedestal, where we talk about the good things. There's Discourse, where I talk about the questions I had while listening. And then there's On a Turntable, where I pose questions to you, the audience, in hopes that you comment your answers and try to get some engagement. You know, I'd love to see some. So let's talk about it. Let's start with a little liner notes, which is the simple question of why this album. This album came out on March 3rd. That's probably about 10-ish days ago from recording. And I wanted to sit with it for a little bit because I was curious what Lady Gaga was up to post her time in The Joker, which is probably the most laughably bad second movie in a franchise maybe ever. She played Harley Quinn, and I was like, man, I wonder what she's up to after that. And the answer is returning to form. I don't know, I'll say one thing about Todd Phillips. If you trust the director of The Hangover to direct a musical about incel culture, you're going to end up with Joker 2. That's it. This is a music show, so I'm not going to get into that movie, but that movie's hot garbage. And Todd Phillips sucks. That's pretty much the read I get on this record, is that she's just returning to form, which is hilarious because in the intro I called it Recession Pop's resurgence, and that is true. This is it's like return to early Lady Gaga, and all that can mean is if you are young right now, high school aged, I can tell you from the last time the economy crashed that you are going to want to play your Wii while your parents lose the house and you listen to Lady Gaga. I guess the modern day version of that is you get a Switch 2 for Christmas this year, and then your parents get divorced for New Year's. That's basically what's going on here. That's recession pop, baby. All we need now is Katy Perry to come back. That's it. And we're back. We're so back. Kesha? Oh my gosh. But that's pretty much it for the liner notes. So let's move on to a Pedestal. This is where I talk about the highlights of the record. And I'm going to go ahead and dive in and go with my top 3 songs from this record. My top 3 were the opener, Disease. I love a good opener. I think it sets up the album perfectly, and I'll get into a little later what I mean by that. But let's just keep it rolling through the top 3. My second favorite is Abracadabra, the lead single off this record. It's super fun. It's so reminiscent of old Gaga, and it's it's just a really good time to listen to, and I like just bopping in the car. That's kind of what I imagine people do listening to Lady Gaga these days, is bopping in the car. I can't imagine these get played at clubs anymore, but again, we'll get into that a little bit later. And finally, my favorite song on the record is Perfect Celebrity. I don't think that was a lead single at all, and I also think that I personally love finding a hidden gem. And it seems to be pretty popular on streaming services right now, but I do think this is sort of the unsung hero of the record, probably because it's the most poignant song. And the reason I call it the most poignant song is because I think she's kind of getting ahead of the curve as far as what people are going to say about her in this, or even in a post Joker 2 world, she's getting ahead of audiences and being you give me money, I make you laugh. That's one of the main lines of the song. And the thing is, she it's almost Kendrick in the sense of when he did the halftime show, he got ahead of audiences and was this, you're gonna call this lame, you're gonna call this all these things. In Gaga's case, it was more I made money regardless of what you think of me. I'm the perfect celebrity. I do whatever I want, and you guys pay me $1 million fucking dollars in the process. It honestly reminds me of Tool's song off of Enema, Hooker with a Penis. where he's like, you buy exactly what I feed you. So like, if you're calling me a sellout, but you paid me to do what I'm doing. So the money's mine now, dog. You bought it hook, line, and sinker. And that's kind of like reminiscent of what I think Lady Gaga's going for with Perfect Celebrity, although it's a little more like upbeat than Hooker with a Penis by Tool. So that pretty much does it for On a Pedestal. What are your top 3? I'd love to see in the comments. Please comment below. For Discourse, our second segment, I'm going to start with the bottom 3. So like we did the top 3 in Pedestal. What are the bottom 3 songs on this record? And I would say Killa is up there for me. Not because of the Gessa Pfefferstein feature. Gessa Pfefferstein I've seen with like Pharrell, and I've seen him like he's I believe, and like tell me I'm wrong in the comments, I believe he's like a French house music producer, and he's, you know, run of the mill. He's fine. It's like Kavinsky-esque. That's fine. That's not the part that I hate about this song. I hate the opening line. The opening line where she's like smoking that gas on the street corner. Truly tough. Because like there is definitely like with celebrities and songs and whatnot, there is like an air of like persona they put on. And sometimes they just don't live up to the persona they're trying to portray. And I don't think Lady Gaga lives up to the persona in that song at all. I think like there's no one looks at Lady Gaga and be like, yeah, I think this person smokes gas with somebody's hand on her ass on the street corner. That's just like something you're not going to sell me. So whether it comes to comedy, the world I come from, or the music world, a huge portion of what you're doing on stage is selling yourself to the audience, and that's one I'm not buying. Plain and simple. My second of the bottom 3 is Don't Call Tonight, because that's essentially just Alejandro Part 2. They are so aggressively similar that when I got done listening to Don't Call Tonight, I just had Alejandro stuck in my head. Like, don't call my name, Alejandro. But like, it's just like, don't call tonight. Like, they are so obnoxiously similar that I'm like almost upset she kept it on the album. And then the last one that I thought was pretty tough was Zombie Boy. And this, in sort of like a similar vein to Alejandro, or like, not even Alejandro, Don't Call Tonight, which is just Alejandro Part 2. Zombie Boy reminds me of like early Gaga, where she's like, where are my little monsters, claws up, but like we're 15 years removed from that, so kind of tough, not really a great time. So I just think that like while this album I do think is a return to form for Lady Gaga after like her kind of just like exploring for a while, getting into movies, doing shit with Bradley Cooper and Joaquin Phoenix, this might have been a little too far back in her catalog and just remind me of the Little Monsters thing. I'm sure there are millennial theater kids everywhere who are so into that they're just like eating it up. But I myself, I would like to see something a little different at least. So moving on from the bottom 3, I have some other sort of discourse questions that I'd like to pose to you guys, the audience. Do we think that 80s motifs in pop music today are a little played out? And I say that because this album is like pretty like in like most pop albums these days, and like honestly thanks to The Weeknd, who are like dipping into that sort of 80s vibe, I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to feel like it's played out, because there are like other pop artists out there like Charlie XCX who are kind of pushing pop further, I think, into like modern times without relying so heavily on like the 80s vibe. Because like this is all reminiscent of like Cher, Madonna, and like I'm in like the pop lineage, it goes like Cher and Madonna, Lady Gaga, Chappell Rowan, and that's totally great. But like I think Lady Gaga is now looking a little further back than she is forward, and I think that kind of speaks to like pop music in general. What do you guys think? The other thing I really wanted to talk about as far as discourse goes is this album like plateaued pretty hard. I'd say the first 4 tracks like really get you up there, and then it's just steady. It just stays like the exact same until like the second to last track, the one right before Bruno Mars, where she's singing like alone with a piano, which is great because it's not overproduced. It's just her. We love that. And then it just kind of like flatlines. And I think like this album, it's like, while it's good, I would like a little more variance, a little more up and down, a little more volatility, just to keep things exciting. But so there was like a huge chunk in the middle of this album that I found boring. But that's just me. That's what Discourse is for. Let me know in the comments if you disagree. And that brings us to our final segment of this mini-series. It is on a turntable. It's where I pose questions to you, the viewers, where we kind of like get to discuss this album and like where it stands in culture in general. Some of the things I wrote down were, I think pop has become incredibly homogenous, and this album's like a really good representation of that. And what I mean is like a lot of pop music now is like super sounding the same, and that's like across all industries. Like everything seems to be reaching the singularity where everything just sounds the same. And potentially that's because like algorithmic music making is at the top of mind for most executives. But there were 2 tracks on this album, and I can't remember them off the top of my head, but one of them sounded like a Miley Cyrus track from like other recession pop days, and the other one very well could have been a Taylor Swift pop track. And like that's like, it just feels like all of pop music, it's like the same narrow group of producers that are making songs for these like pop stars, and when one doesn't buy it, the other one does. And so it just feels like there isn't like a lot of like variance between artists, to the point where like everyone's album is starting to sound the same. It's almost like corporate branding is just becoming black and white. There's like hardly any color in life anymore. Like thanks to the success of Apple and tech in wanting to seem like you're a professional place that does professional things, everyone has started to look the same. And like, that's not really for me. And like I saw a really interesting chart on the internet the other day where it was like the amount of songs in the top 100 that have like key changes has just dropped off significantly. And I would say this album falls into that category near the bottom, where like I don't notice a key change at all. It's all just kind of the same. And so I'm wondering if like you guys picked up on that too. For anyone listening to this record, if it felt really homogenous to you, where it's like you could have sold any of these songs to Taylor Swift, to Miley Cyrus, or like any of like the sort of like legacy pop stars, and whether you would have felt a difference or not. But you know, that's just me. So my next thought in this turntable section is, Lady Gaga albums are so traditionally maximalist, and I think that's so interesting that she's like kind of tied into the recession pop situation. That like, do you think maximalism is like a solid like answer to recessions? I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, do you think that art kind of like does the opposite of like what the world is going on to, just sort of like a coping mechanism for, because like the economy right now as of recording is kind of like heading deep into the toilet. Donald Trump literally just tried to sell Teslas on the front lawn of the White House. Things are not going well. I've only seen memes about the stock market being red. I don't have money in the stock market, so who cares? But all I'm saying is like, so having this album come out and having Lady Gaga be like inextricably tied to the concept of recession pop, I wonder if it's just sort of like a subconscious antidote to like feeling like times are skinny, is to start making music that feels really big. What do you guys think? I mean, maybe this is how we get through this, is sort of like the delusion that things are like great. Things are totally fine. And finally, I want to pose the question to you guys before I sign off here. What do you look for in pop music? Because in music in general, I kind of look for relatability. And there are legacy like pop artists like Lady Gaga who don't necessarily relate to me because she's living a life I couldn't even imagine. And so my question to you is, what do you look for in pop music? Do you look for vibes alone, or are you looking to like feel seen by an artist? Because I don't necessarily feel seen by Lady Gaga. I'm sure there are little monsters out there who do, but I don't necessarily feel seen. I don't relate to her all that often. Is the music good? Yeah, generally. I had a great time listening to this album. It's sunny outside. Like things are like, it's springtime. Things are getting good. I can see this album being played on a boat. But outside of that, there's not a lot of relatability there. And I guess for the pop heads out there, I wanted to pose the question, do you look for relatability in music? Because like when I listen to like early pop punk records, like my boy Fall Out Boy over here, there was like a very real time in my life where I did align with some of the more toxic things going on in that record. I won't lie to you. But I wonder. So if you've made it this far in the video, please answer in the comments. What do you think of the album? Do you think it was good? Do you think it was like a return to form? I'd love to hear. This whole series is about chatting with you, the audience, about albums that I'm listening to. So I'd love to see some comments. If you made it this far, give it a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. I have long form shows happening all the time. So, keep in mind, you want to see people talk about albums they love. Let's do that. But this is all I had for Mayhem by Lady Gaga, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.